Okay, let's try that again. We're going to get started. My name is Barry Woods. I am the interim vice chair. Nick Nichols is on vacation tonight. This is my first meeting that I'll be chairing, so I appreciate your patience as I work my way through the process. We've got an hour and a half. Hopefully we can accomplish business before that full hour and a half. Just to give you a quick preview of what we're going to be doing, we've got Dan Stevenson, Executive Director, is going to be doing some reporting. The main order of business tonight, besides approving minutes from the last meeting, April 30th, is to go through the budget. We will have opportunity for public comment, and hopefully we will wrap up before 5:30. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and per usual, I just would like to have the board introduce themselves. Maybe we could start with Rita.
Hi, I'm Rita Armstrong from Freeport.
I'm Barry Valentine, Secretary of FERA, and I live in Brunswick.
And I've already introduced myself. We've got Jay.
Jay Astle, resident of Brunswick and assistant town manager in Brunswick.
And we've got two board members online. Hopefully you can hear me. Charlotte, can you hear me okay? Can you introduce yourself?
Yep, Charlotte Mace from the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development.
And John?
Yeah, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, John Krasnick, resident of Scarborough.
Okay, thank you all. Before we get started, I want to just add one item, just as a preliminary matter. I know there's been, and this is for the benefit of the board who are not otherwise on the executive committee, we've been waiting for a while on a root cause analysis of the spills, and it's been assigned to a professional fire safety entity, Pool and Associates. The report is still being drafted. It's not yet ready. It's not a report that the board has seen. We are getting feedback from the council, Drawn and Woodson, who's overseeing this, that they are trying to get Pool to finish it. Obviously, it's not ideal that it's taking this long, but I wanted to just at least raise that. I wish I could give you a definitive expectation as to when it's going to be complete. I just know that Pool is aware that everyone wants to have answers, but clearly the value is to have as comprehensive and as complete and as readable a report as possible to answer these questions. So even though being expeditious is always a virtue, I would rather it be more complete than just be delivered to meet an arbitrary deadline. So I just wanted to get that comment out on the record, again, for the benefit of the board who haven't been privy to those discussions. And then I was going to just turn it over to Dan Stevenson for an update.
Welcome, everyone. I am pleased to announce some good news that's just happened quite recently with respect to a FFF concentrate in Hangar 5. MRRA received a lead a few weeks ago that American Airlines was looking for some AFFF concentrate. We immediately reached out to them and were able to put an agreement together. We've been working very hard at making this happen. And just yesterday, I was able to sign a contract with American Airlines. They've agreed to pay MRRA $250,000 to purchase 4,125 gallons out of Hangar 5 and about 1,800 gallons that's already been drained from Hangar 7. They anticipate coming here tomorrow or Friday to pick up the 1,800 gallons in Hangar 7, and we have signed an agreement. I signed an agreement today with a company called ECT2 for them to come start draining Hangar 5 on Monday. Because it's a slow drain for that many gallons, they'll be doing that over the course of 4 days. So we anticipate, and we'll continue to work with American Airlines the following week for them to come up and remove that. What will be the outcome of that? We will have no more AFFF concentrate in any of the hangars. So we did allow them up to 30 days in case there were some transportation challenges, what have you, but they plan on reusing that material as an airline. They need to put some in their tanks. And so we're very pleased to announce that. That was quite a bit of work. I would like to just give a shout out to Mr. Eric Perkins, who's on staff at MRRA, who ran with that lead and did some great work. And still, while on his vacation, he was still chipping in and helping out. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to him. MRRA has excellent staff. We seized on that opportunity. It's something that we did not expect, and it's something that's really worked well in our favor. So that's my biggest update for the evening, and we're very, very pleased we're able to make this happen. Therefore, I was unable to get all of the responses with my team completed on the questions that we received after the airport update meeting. We received 122 questions. We still have a few changes to make and some edits and a few more answers to complete. I, quite frankly, had shifted all of my time to working that deal with American Airlines, which we felt was very important. We anticipate having the changes that I just noted, as well as finishing it up. Most likely, it'll be tomorrow afternoon we'll get that posted. We just need a little bit more time to make these changes in there and a few others. So you can be looking forward to that. Once we post that, we'll make sure the town gets it, and we'll also blast it out on our website. That's it for my update right now.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Thanks to you and staff for capitalizing on that otherwise unforeseen opportunity. It is good news. Next order of business is going to be approval of the board minutes of April 30th, 2025, which was in the package of materials. So first, is there any board member that has any suggested edits, questions, issues with the minutes? Okay, hearing none, then I would just like to proceed to have a vote to approve, and I'm just going to go down roll call like Nick usually does, so we'll start with Rita.
Aye.
Aye, okay. And Barry? I will vote aye. Jay?
Aye.
Charlotte?
Aye.
And John?
Aye.
Okay, so this, the approval of the minutes from April 30th, 2025 is unanimous. And then usually we have a series of committee reports. Dan, what was our thinking on that? I know that those are included in the documents as well.
That was just in case any board members had any questions on them. If you don't have any questions on them, you'll just move to the next agenda item.
So why don't we start perhaps with, we could just do it aggregate. Does anyone have any questions with regard to any of the three committee reports, executive, redevelopment, or finance at this point? And again, those are all in the package of materials. Okay.
I was thinking,
Rita.
Barry, that we were going to do some kind of a report on the Finance Committee. I mean, I'm not doing it, but I was thinking that Jeffrey gave handouts, and I'm not sure if John, I'll defer to you, but I was thinking that was substantial enough information that it would be good to bring up in the meeting.
Yeah, I think
Unless
one
that-
thing to be aware of, Rita, is that I think Jeffrey's going to be doing a summary presentation of the budget and each of the
okay.
categories.
I'm sorry.
So he may cover, but certainly I give John an opportunity to respond to that. John, if you have any need to provide any. The recommendation from the Finance Committee was unanimous with regard to the budget items, correct?
They were, yeah. I mean, everything that we've reviewed in the last, took us actually, we had a regularly scheduled Finance Committee meeting, and then we actually had a special meeting where we finished, where we finished the budgets. So the Finance Committee has voted to recommend, as you can see, we voted to recommend approval. I don't really have much to add other than that, because I know Jeffrey will be presenting later.
Yeah, but certainly, as Jeffrey presents, if there are items that come up for question, whether they were discussed in finance, we can certainly bring that out, and John can respond.
Fair, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so not hearing any, are there any other questions with regard to the minutes from the other committee meetings? The reports? Okay. So that being said, given that the primary agenda item is the budget as broken down in these categories, Jeffrey, should I just turn that over to you with regard to the summary that you prepared? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Jordan, Deputy Director and Chief Financial Officer. First, I want to recognize and express my appreciation to the Finance Committee, who spent 3 meetings dealing with these budgets. And so I've prepared a quick summary of what the major changes have been to those budgets. You're actually looking at 5 different budgets. The first 4 deal with the real estate, essentially divisions of MRRA. One's Brunswick Landing. That was created to accept economic development conveyance property from the Navy, essentially all non-airport property. The second is the airport. The third is Brunswick Landing Realty Development, which leases space in Hangar 6 from MRRA and runs a business incubator. The fourth is a partnership actually between MRRA and Brunswick Landing Realty Development that built the Molneca building. So, so let me give you kind of a quick overview of those budgets. In Brunswick Landing, the proposed budget is just over $2.2 million. This budget has 10 leases with a revenue of $447,000, down $32,900 because Main Technology moved out last September, and we currently have a purchase and sale agreement for that building. We are proposing a utilization of our amortization reserve account. This is kind of like an emergency budget fund that we have not used for a number of years. But because of changes in the airport budget, and we'll talk a bit more about that in particular, legal counsel has advised staff and ultimately the Finance Committee and now the full board that we should purchase an insurance liability, an environmental insurance liability policy from the state of Maine. I submitted 17 pages of written material as well as 300 pages of additional documents to the Maine Bureau of Risk Management in support of that application. We had to provide extensive documents related to the history of environmental issues, historical environmental issues of the Navy, had to go into a full explanation of the release of foam in Hangar 4 last fall, and we have not yet received a quote. They are still shopping the market. But the Finance Committee recommended a placeholder in the airport budget of $100,000 for this policy. So depending on what we find out, I submitted that application, actually it'll be 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and they're scouring the market for the terms that have been recommended by our attorneys, essentially a $5 million policy. Once we receive that policy, it may require a budget adjustment, either up or down, and we will bring forward the appropriate action to the board for its consideration to adjust for that eventuality. I will also note that the Brunswick Landing budget is the budget where we track all employee expenditures, all employee salaries, wages, and benefits. And then the sub-entities, based on effort, we cost account staff support back from those entities back to Brunswick Landing. But essentially all employee costs are tracked through Brunswick Landing. The budget includes a 3% cost of living adjustment for staff effective July 1st. Total wage and benefit budget increases are at $41,000. We are proposing a $30,000 increase in an environmental consulting budget and bringing that total budget to $35,000. This is a new item and a new kind of an expanded focus as directed by the board, as directed by state statute, that are the authorizing statute that created MRRA has been amended by the legislature that added a reference to the goals of MRRA to include environmental management, that it's an important goal for MRRA, so we've added additional resources to meet that goal. We continue the practice of transferring 10% of lease revenue into a capital improvements reserve account to fund and supplement the capital dollars provided by the town of Brunswick through its tax increment financing appropriations. The budget includes projected revenue and expenditures for the new high-speed electric vehicle charging stations that we expect to be finalized within the next few weeks. Moving to the Brunswick Executive Airport. The proposed airport budget is $2,694,000, down $82,400 from the prior year. The budget contains 49 leases. I mean, the airport has 49 separate leases contained among 10 buildings for a total of 536,000 square feet. Lease revenue is actually down $122,100. It is because we expect this fall that Stark Systems will be moving out of the south portion of Hangar 5 and out of office space where their corporate office is in part of Hangar 6, because they are moving into a brand new 86,000 square foot manufacturing facility that is under construction right now at Brunswick Landing on Pegasus Drive. The maintenance budget is up $22,500, bringing the total building maintenance budget to $290,500. The budget, as I mentioned earlier, includes a $100,000 placeholder for environmental insurance. The budget includes an appropriation of $135,000. This would be essentially our first payment. Actually, it's not to Maine DEP, it is to Maine DOT, as part of a repayment of a line of credit. In the early years, we had the responsibility, we had a hot transfer of hangars 5 and, actually 4, 5, and 6, were all a hot transfer. It means those buildings were heated by the Navy, and they were turned over to us in September of 2011 as a hot transfer. So we had to heat those buildings that year, even though we only had one airport tenant at the time, Kestrel Aircraft, in a portion of Hangar 6. So we didn't have the cash. Fortunately, the state of Maine stepped forward and lent us just over $1,078,000. And we are to share 20% of profitability. In the year that the airport becomes profitable, we have to begin to share those proceeds. We actually were prepared for the current fiscal year that will end next Monday to pay them $35,000. And that was going to be our first payment because it was the first year that we were profitable as an airport. Following the spill, we asked the state of Maine, would they be willing to forego that payment, and they agreed. So this budget will be the first year in which we'll pay the $135,500 to Maine DOT, so that should be corrected, it's not DEP. And finally, similar to Brunswick Landing, we also transfer 10% of lease revenue to capital reserves, again, to fund future capital projects. The next is the Brunswick Landing Realty Development. This is the...
Jeffrey, quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Just to clarify, we're going to vote on the budget in total after you've reviewed these?
Correct.
Do you think, and this is a question for the board, do you want, maybe, it might be easier for us if we have questions as you go through each, just to open the floor for the board and then proceed to the next? I know you've gone through the Brunswick Landing
in the airport.
in the airport, but
Sure.
maybe we could just pause for a second, see if there's any questions based on a lot of the information that you've condensed.
Great.
So,
Yep.
okay.
I don't have questions, but I was thinking that this was really a good job on taking the top line items, because there's a lot of detail in each of these budgets, which is in the packet, but it's nice to see it summarized so succinctly.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah, to that point, this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And so it's good to be able to see what we need to see that's salient and highlighted. But John and Charlotte, do you have any questions with regard to either of those two budget summaries?
No, I
I-
don't.
Okay, Charlotte? No? John?
I don't either.
Okay. All right, well, that was easy, Jeffrey. You can
Okay,
proceed.
no,
Okay.
that was a great suggestion. One thing I think I skipped over it on staffing. Just so that you know, and the public knows, we have 10 full-time staff and 4 part-time staff employed at MRRA. And those 10 staff, and I've mentioned this in previous meetings, those 10 staff are responsible for running a 370 customers, electric customers. So we run an electric district, a PUC regulated electric utility district. And then as of February of this year, a final decision, and the PUC established our rate schedule for water, so we are now a regulated water utility providing potable water to 170 customers. We're also the largest general aviation airport in the state of Maine. We also have the largest business incubator north of Boston, a 95,000 square foot business incubator with 43 different companies in tech place. During one survey, we had talked a couple of years ago to the Lewis and Auburn Jetport. They had a staff of 15 just to run the airport. So let's move to Brunswick Landing Realty Development. Again, this is a private corporation that does require some subsidy from Brunswick Landing. It is a taxable corporation. Should we be profitable, we'd actually pay state and federal income taxes. We have not been profitable, but to this point, it's not expected that a business incubator of this style would be profitable. We've met with others. We actually spent time in both in Boston and co-joined an effort. We had a Association of Defense Communities conference in San Francisco. We took that opportunity to meet with a large business incubator, accelerator in San Francisco, run by a not-for-profit. And they rely on, in addition to some lease revenue, they rely on private sponsorships to fund it, so they are subsidized as well. So anyways, the proposed budget for Tech Place is $710,300, up $11,000 from last year. We have 53 different user agreements in 43,797 square feet. Lease revenue is down $44,000, essentially because we had lost 2 tenants who rent bench space in our bioscience lab. Bioscience labs are expensive to set up. And fortunately, we had a grant from the federal government. We were one of 14 business accelerator grants issued nationwide back in 2014. And because they're expensive to set up, you can charge a fairly substantial lease rate for that space. So when that company moved out, and I'm not sure which, I can't recall the names, I don't want to guess on who it was, but when that company moved out, they moved out to two bench spaces, and that alone, they were paying just over $40,000 for lease space. So we lost that lease revenue. The cost of lab oversight, we do still have some lab work. We have a private operator in a portion of the lab. The lab's actually in two different ones. One's a shared space and one's a private lab. So we do have the private lab has been rented. But the cost of overseeing that lab space, that contract's up by $2,400, bringing the total price to $6,500. And the share of the audit, they share in the cost of the audit, that's up $2,300. And then you have a transfer of increase in the wages for the position and a half at Tech Place, and that's up $4,900. The last real estate entity is Brunswick Landing MHC.
Should we ask?
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead. Questions on Tech Place?
Questions on Tech Place? Jay, a question?
No.
Charlotte, any questions on Tech Place? John? Okay. Okay.
The last...
I can read your lips, John. Jeffrey, is it fair to say with Tech Place, I didn't realize it was for profit, but is it fair to say that really the value of Tech Place is the amount of... Sorry. Is it fair to say that the value of Tech Place in many ways is really the generation of new businesses? And
it is. I think if I recall, I think we have spun out something like 400 employees that have come through Tech Place and been graduates. And I think my favorite example is Stark Systems. Stark Systems grew out of Hebert Construction. It was the son of the owner of Hebert Construction out of Lewis and Auburn area. They're a statewide contractor and builder. But their son had, one of the Hebert sons had an idea about these portable wall systems. Rather than building a 2x4 wall and covering it with either sheetrock or plastic, if you're going to kind of close off the wing of a hospital, they came up with this composite materials and these wall systems that the panels would slide up and down with like rubber grommets on the top, so that you could actually slide a panel right up to the ceiling, and then you could also stretch these panels to the side, and have them tight against the walls. And they were really, they looked almost like a sheetrock wall. They're clean and neat looking, and you don't have, to come in and tear it down. You just collapse the walls and take it out, and you're done. Then eventually they started putting doors and windows in them. And then when COVID hit, they were using these portable wall systems to create temporary hospital rooms in large facilities like the Jake Jarrett Center in New York City, just setting up these temporary hospital rooms. So their business is actually growing. They now operate in, I think, 5 or 6 different countries. They ship materials to Europe, to Australia, Canada, Mexico. It's an international company. They kept growing into Tech Place, and we were actually kind of worried that they were taking so much of Tech Place that if they moved out all of a sudden, we'd, really kind of be up against the wall. But then they leased building 553 to store materials down in there. Then they moved their operation into 553, wanted to build an addition on there. We went through like 3 iterations of these buildings that kept growing and growing. Finally, we decided, let's just move them into Hangar 5, the south bay of Hangar 5, and they can start off at like 40,000 square feet, and they could grow, and they kept growing within that south bay. And now they're under construction with an 86,000 square foot manufacturing facility and corporate office. It started with 2 employees in Tech Place, and they have over 120 employees right now in Hangar 5. It's a perfect example of the support to start a new business, the collaboration with others in Tech Place on, different materials. It's just a great example of a success story. And they're not the only ones. Running Tide and the ORPC, Ocean, I can't remember the full acronym, but I mean, there have been a number of businesses that have.
So we shouldn't feel too guilty about not having a profit that we pay taxes against. Thank you, Jeffrey.
So the Brunswick Landing MHC, we were approached by a Swedish company who wanted to come in and take over what was a supply warehouse of the Navy. And this was an example of kind of cooperation of the Navy right from the get-go, both from the BRAC office in Philadelphia and also the local commander, that on a license agreement, they allowed us to tear that warehouse down and start the construction of a $15.5 million facility for Molneca. And we couldn't do it as a governmental entity because we want to take advantage of new market tax credits. So we created a private partnership called Brunswick Landing MHC. 99% of that partnership is owned by MRRA, and 1% is owned by Brunswick Landing Realty. So the profitability of MHC is actually moved to MRRA, and as a non-taxable entity, we do not have to pay taxes on that profit. And on the last line of this page, you can see that the transfer is a return for the investment and the time and the effort made by MRRA. Next year, we'll return $245,000, which is up $3,400 from the current year.
Any questions from the board on that report?
I would note that there, in the budget document, you will see highlighted in the projection, the budget that I presented also included a 5-year forecast. And in that 5-year forecast, I actually highlighted in yellow this revenue transfer, this profitability transfer to MRRA as being at risk. Because there are some discussions that Molneca may be interested in purchasing that building. So that future revenue could be at risk.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
The next is kind of a function of the Brunswick Landing budget, and it's called common area maintenance charges. And we want to kind of raise this issue because it affects so many of the property owners at Brunswick Landing. When MRRA sells first of all, we cannot sell any airport property. There is a prohibition as the condition of that public benefit conveyance that we must forever hold on to that property. We can only lease the property, and the revenues must go to support the operation and overhead of the airport. The Brunswick Landing economic development conveyance, where we pay 25% of all lease and sale revenue for 30 years to the Navy, can sell property. And when we sell property, as part of the deed transfer, we get the purchaser to sign what's called a joinder agreement that they must agree to pay for the common public infrastructure benefits. So they pay based on occupied square footage of buildings at Brunswick Landing. So we put together what's called a common area maintenance budget, and those pay for roadway sidewalk maintenance and pothole repair and snow plowing, public esplanade maintenance and mowing, street sweeping, line striping, traffic and street sign maintenance, stormwater collection and catch basin cleaning, street light maintenance and operation, and electricity for those street lights, and Brunswick Landing fire protection, essentially to maintain all of the fire hydrants on campus. The common area maintenance budget is actually this year up $53,400 or 15.2%, clearly the largest increase that we've had in the history of common area maintenance budgets. That was in large part driven by the decision of the Maine Public Utilities Commission, in their case, establishing water rates for the new Brunswick Landing water utility, and it's contained in docket 2025-00053, with rates effective July 1st. It is common practice for the Public Utilities Commission to establish an approach on how you fund essentially the oversized capacity of a water system to provide fire service protection. For domestic water service, you wouldn't need to create anywhere near the size system that would just serve, the water consumption of residential or even commercial or industrial structures. But when you need the amount of water to fight a fire, and the pressure and the volume you need to size that system significantly higher. And those cost by formula. There's a formula that rates the size of that fire capacity in relation to the types of customers that you have, and there's a cost curve that the Public Utilities Commission have established, and they establish what that amount of money should be raised from generally a municipality, because municipalities budget for fire protection, so the town of Brunswick gets a bill from the district based on that cost curve, and they pay to the Brunswick Topsom Water District a fee for the district to maintain those fire hydrants. Now, since these fire hydrants were all Navy fire hydrants, it's our responsibility because they're not on public roads, they're on roads owned by MRRA. So that fee this year, in 2025, that fire protection fee was $103,900. We were not a public utility commission, but we kind of followed that same protocol, if you will. But the calculation, having gone through a formal rate hearing with the PUC, is now $171,000, and that's the primary driver of the common area maintenance charge. So the common area maintenance fee, oops, it got clipped off, but the common area maintenance fee this year was just over 18 cents a square foot, and next year will be 20 cents. Well, July 1st, it'll be about 20 cents per square foot. And those are a one-time annual payment. We usually send those invoices out at the end of August or early September. The final budget is the Brunswick Landing Electric Utility budget for 2025. The budget is $4,969,100, up $341,800, or 7.39%. Now, this has been a difficult budget to prepare because we've been adding so many customers recently. So it is difficult to forecast consumption and revenues. And in prior years, when our customer base wasn't growing so fast, we would just kind of use the last 12-month, last 12 months of revenue and what we had consumed for electricity. What we had to do in this year's budget is literally take March's budget, March's actual cost of service, cost of goods sold from Central Maine Power, from New Energy, and from Pegasus Solar, and what our customers were charged, and just multiply that by 12. So we weren't able to take into account seasonal fluctuations, because there are seasonal fluctuations, but I don't think that it's going to be a dramatic impact by not using that, but I just wanted to tell you what that approach was. Professional services are up $19,100 to support our additional work with the Maine PUC, and now our work with ISO New England. We are now will be a part of the independent system operator, ISO New England, out of Burlington, Mass. They're the ones who actually manage the distribution of electricity throughout New England. So we will become a direct customer of theirs for transmission, and we will actually pay our transmission charges not to Central Maine Power. Not all, there's a portion of Central Maine Power that delivers it for us, but we're actually buying transmission services from ISO New England. So we're working through the process. We're working with a consultant by the name of Steve Garwood, and Drummond Woodsum attorney Amy Olson at Drummond Woodsum to work through ISO New England, set that system up. And we're also, we'll probably be partnering with Central Maine Power on their amendment for a FERC license in order to be a carrier for us to get electricity through their system to us. And we also did bump system repair and maintenance up by $13,000, bringing our total repair and maintenance budget to $96,500 on the electric distribution system. And that,
You were on a roll, Jeffrey, so I didn't interrupt you to see if people had questions about the CAN charges.
sorry,
That's okay. Why don't, if we have questions about the CAN or the electric utility budget? Charlotte, Sean, any questions about the common area? Okay. Well, you're getting off easy.
Oh, you're not
Okay.
on, Barry. I think
Yeah.
you're on still.
I'm never going to remember that. You're getting off easy, Jeffrey, then,
Thank you.
relatively speaking. So.
And I would note, the Finance Committee held their last meeting last Wednesday and unanimously recommended adoption of this budget as amended.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Jeffrey. Thank you. So I think that being the presentation and not hearing any questions, we go to the requested action, which is approval. And I think we'll just aggregate all 5 budget components into one. So I need a motion to approve the entire budget as presented, and then a second.
So moved.
So moved.
So Barry Valentine has moved, and I need a second.
Second.
That was John, I believe. So I'm going to go through the roll call to hear what we have to say in terms of voting. Rita, what do you
Aye.
say? Aye. Jay, I'm sorry, Barry, how do you say? I will say aye. Jay?
Aye.
Charlotte?
Aye.
And John?
Aye, and thank you, Jeffrey.
I second that. Thank you, Jeffrey. So hearing no nays or abstentions, we have a unanimous approval of the budget as presented, Jeffrey. So thank you. That was the heart of all the agenda, but we do have an opportunity to hear from Dan further, to the extent you want to add items.
Yeah, I just have a few more updates. One of them that we just received today. There will be an aerobatic aircraft flying tomorrow and Friday. He'll be doing 3 to 4 flights each day, but not during the weekend. We've posted that on our website, and we let the town of Brunswick know as well. If you do have questions about that, you can always reach out to Jim Nall. He's the airport manager as well. And just some updates on some business development activity. Recently, we closed on lots 61 and 62 with Priority Real Estate Group for part of the village development. Both of those combined were in the amount of $705,000. We closed on lot 63, also with Priority Real Estate for $260,000. And we're finalizing a purchase and sale agreement for 8 Venture Avenue. And that's the former building that MTI was in. And Jeffrey had already mentioned, there is some interest from Monarchy to, these are the lots being sold, 16B and 16C to them. We're working through that process right now. The operators, Harris Golf, of the golf course still have interest in purchasing the golf course. We have no agreement or anything in place at this time. I think I reported out last time the water filtration system has been installed at the golf course to date. Few things on the roads. Allagash Road runs in between those lots we sold, and so We are all working together with this town as well to straighten that road out. Most of you know that curve is very difficult to navigate. And right now, we are having the design updated so we can end up moving forward at a later date to get that road straightened out. That's to be determined. We need the design first to determine the costs on that. So that will allow Jim Howard eventually to develop those lots out. Most of you see the large 106,000 square foot facility that Stark Systems building. Jeffrey had talked about them as a success story early on. The visitors maps have arrived and were handed out to the town, and the new maps are also displayed at the landing spot when you come in to pick. You can come right to us to pick them up, or you can go to the kiosk and pick them up there. Jeffrey already gave an update on the utilities, so we don't have to go discuss that further. Legislative bills. There were 3 legislative bills that have recently have been signed that Representative Ankeles, Senator Daughtry were moving forward. I had been in regular communication with Representative Ankeles on all 3 of these bills, and we worked in partnership as they moved through the legislature. One of them is called LD 2007, LD 407, and that is the bill that basically says MRRA has to have all the AFFF concentrate removed by the end of this calendar year, which we're going to be ahead of that schedule, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting. There is also LD 1637. Let me get this one off. I'm going to skip that. LD 1819. I want to give Representative Ankeles some kudos for this. He worked really hard at allowing MRRA to identify off-campus jobs created in Maine that we could use as part of our jobs TIF, as we would get a portion of revenue created from the Maine state tax withholding on that. As you can imagine, a lot of changes were going on in the legislature this year. Although the bill was amended, Representative Ankeles worked really hard on that bill, and at least for this year, we were able to get 4 more years out of it as it is right now. The goal, again, is to bring it back to get remote workers, but we won't be able to do that for 2 years, so I wanted to appreciate that. And then LD 1637, that was a bill that looks at making some changes to the board makeup, and also with environmental stewardship. And essentially what that does is it adds another voting member, which would add another commissioner to the board. Currently, it's the commissioner of DECD. We anticipate it would be the commissioner of Maine DOT, but we don't know. That's to be determined. It also states that a slate of candidates that the town moves forward, the governor will appoint one from a slate of candidates, and it also says that at least 3 members of the 10-member board, at least 3 of them need to be residents of Brunswick, Brunswick town officials, or Brunswick business owners, and 1 is a resident of Topsom or staff member of Topsom in town administration or Topsom business owner. It also says that with the Uniform Environmental Covenants Act, all the properties owned by MRRA will be subject to that moving forward, and we've agreed to do so. Currently, we have 2 properties that have that, and the town has 1, but we will work with DEP on that to make sure all that happens moving forward. I will get these posted on our website so anyone can go and read through them on their own as well. Those are my updates for today.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions from the board with regard to what Dan's report?
I just had a quick question. I'm not sure it has to do with it. More, it goes back to his announcement at the beginning about the sale. I was wondering, off the top of your head, Dan, what you see the uses of those funds going towards. I mean, obviously, we've got the new environmental insurance. So it'll probably go towards that. But are you thinking just that and additional costs from the release?
Yeah, so we have one more step to do. We need to cleanse the systems in Hangar 5 and in Hangar 6. And those are very expensive. It's nearly $500,000 to cleanse the residual in Hangar 5. I don't have the number in front of me in Hangar 6. One of the thoughts is to apply those funds toward that, which makes the greatest amount of sense because we have until December 31st of 2026 to get that accomplished. My goal is to continue to be creative, find creative sources of revenue to get that done before then.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question, John. I should know the answer to this, but with regard to the 3 bills that you referenced, have they been passed out of committee, and what's the status?
Yes, they've been passed. All 3 of them now are in session law. One of them, the 10 days passed, so that it made it into the bill. You know, you get the 10 days with the governor's signatures on it. And if it's not signed, it goes into become chaptered law. I didn't want to put anything forward until it became chaptered law because a lot of changes can happen and they can go back. But in this case, all 3 of them are. And and one of them was just, I think, Jeffrey, 2 days ago? I think it was just on the books 2 days ago.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions from the board? I think, unless I'm mistaken, normally we also allow board members to raise any other business that might not otherwise have been stated on the agenda. So I want to just give folks an opportunity if there's any burning issue that they want to raise, or even not burning issue, to do so now. Okay. And unbelievably, and certainly not due to my experience, we're at 4:54. So we're cranking along. So we're not going to have an executive session, which means that we will allow public comment, and I believe, is it 3 minutes per speaker? And it's comments as opposed to questions, although in my experience, there may be an opportunity to have questions answered depending on, you know, what our discretion allows. So I'd invite anyone in the public who has an issue that they want to raise, a comment that they want to make, to just come to the podium and identify themselves, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name's Bruce Kantner. I'm not sure this is on. Is it okay?
We can hear you. I don't know.
Great.
It's being transcribed, so
Yeah.
that's a good sign.
Yeah,
Yep.
Brunswick resident. I just have a question asking for more information and notice and the whole process of these stunt airplanes. As you know, I'm sure, whenever it was they first appeared, they caused quite a lot of varied upset, consternation, so forth. Someone came to me in the neighborhood who has post-traumatic stress disorder and said these triggered that in her. I heard about somebody who has a child at the daycare, said it was really disruptive. And so quite a few letters, I believe, went to the council from citizens. I don't know the tally. And we made calls to the airport and spoke with Jim and spoke with a couple counselors specific about it. And it's still a puzzle. It's kind of a puzzle. How did this come about without any, presumably, that I'm not aware of, any public participation, or the council for that matter? I do know, there are lots of proposed ideas how to work with it. One would certainly be just to give us a really clear schedule for the summer. We've had different information. One of our counselors, Jamie Eckert, had something that was different from what I heard from Jim Nall and what other people on the council heard. So I'm just trying to present this hopefully in a friendly way. But I know in my neighborhood, which is over near the high school, there were 8 or 9 people that I just saw walking up and down the road, maybe even more, who were really quite upset and distressed by this noise. We're about 1.5 miles from the runway as the birds fly. And, it just came at unexpected times. We could not be sure when to expect it. We were told it was going to be a regular weekend thing through 3 or 4 weekends in the summer. So please, I ask you to consider this, especially Director Stevenson, and see how you can maybe repair some of the ill will and get the public well informed. I know there are people who really like stunt planes and show up, and we have to be respectful of the wide range of public input and so forth. So, thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate the comment, and I think we can certainly have some discussion about how to be transparent with regard to why and also the scheduling. Are there any other comments tonight? We've got competing comments, so.
No, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, sir. And just
Hi,
state your name.
My
Sorry.
name is Mary Fox. I'm a Brunswick resident. And you already answered one of my questions, which was going to be where the answers to the questions from the April update meeting. Thank you. So I'll look forward to hearing those. And I'd like to reiterate a comment that was made at that meeting. It was stated at that meeting multiple times that there is no intention of introducing passenger nor cargo flights to Brunswick Landing. However, that is not explicitly stated in the plan, and I believe it was Noah Oppenheim who said he would like to see that the update plan state explicitly, rather than through omission, that that is the plan. For the record, I oppose the expansion. I concur with Councilor Ecker that the $9 million cost of expanding the airport for the maybe 145 international flights doesn't tie out, and I oppose it. And for the record, I despise the stunt planes. I don't care when they're happening. I would just like to not see them happen, and I would like to know why they exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
I could answer 2 of those questions.
Thank you.
Why don't Jim,
yeah.
can we get Jim to answer a couple questions regarding the flights, the stunt flights?
I didn't hear what you said.
That's okay. Can we get Jim to answer the questions regarding the flights, and then we'll give you time? Thank you, sir.
So to the question about the airport master plan update, I believe it was stated during that meeting, there's essentially 3 types of updates that you can do that you categorize your airport going forward. One is a general aviation airport, one is a commercial flights airport, and one is a cargo airport. And in our master plan, it's a general aviation plan. So there's no room in that plan for cargo or passenger aircraft. What was your first question you had?
So what you're saying is it does not need to be explicitly stated in the plan because the update plan is for a recreational airport by...
It's a general aviation airport. Yeah.
That means it will never be for cargo or passenger.
Right. Unless a plan, an airport master plan was submitted for that, which this is not. It's a general aviation plan. And I think you had...
Things that I don't like stunt planes, and I don't know why they have to be here.
Oh, I thought you had another question in between that. But yeah, as far as the stunt planes go, we don't directly control airspace at the airport. The FAA does. So if, as in the case of this aerobatic box, it was submitted to the FAA that they be allowed to do that. The FAA looked at where they were flying and agreed that they could do it there. So it's not so much a function as it would come before the board and everybody else about this as much as it's a function of the FAA saying they can do that there, regardless of what the board or myself or anybody really says about it. We have been working with them so within that box, we've moved them a little bit further south so it's not as close to the homes and neighborhoods there to potentially reduce that noise. There is one person that is based at Brunswick that flies in that box himself, and those flights are not really scheduled. He can say, hey, I want to use the box today, and he can go fly in the box. You know, we can't really tell him no about it, but he's kind of limiting those to an hour, 2 hour type thing. He generally flies for 30 minutes or so at a time, and he'll be down for a while and then maybe fly another. As far as the events go, any events that were, like we've stated, that were scheduled for maybe July or further on, as soon as we know about those, we'll definitely post those to the town, our website, so everybody has plenty of notice whenever they're going to do those. And I think that's really...
Can you describe what the box is?
Yeah, so the box is a 1 mile by 1 mile square box that's over the southwest end of the field. It goes right up to the airport boundary, airport property boundary, and comes over to about halfway in the closed runway. And then it goes south from that and north from that 1 mile. The center point of it, I believe, is almost right at the end of the south end of the runway.
When you say you've moved it farther south, what does that?
So within that 1 mile box, you know, so the northern end of that box is about halfway up the airport runway. So it's closer to the homes and things on the west side of the field. We've asked that they just use the southern portion of that box, which moves it more essentially over the golf course area around the back there.
Over what homes on the Harpswell Road does that include?
I don't know what homes that includes.
They fly over our home, and it really is very upsetting.
So one of the things is that box is completely over airport property. If they're flying aerobatics and doing that, it's within that box, it's over airport property. Now, when they enter and exit the box, they obviously will fly out of the box and come into land. They're going to be over homes.
Yeah.
Their restrictions on that are they can't fly any lower than 1,500 feet to a maximum of 5,000 feet. So there will never be low altitude buzzing anybody's home or anything like that.
Jim, a question, and I appreciate your willingness to.
Yeah, no problem.
Is there a mechanism by which the public can actually provide feedback to the FAA, who apparently is the one who authorizes this?
Yes. I don't know exactly where on the FAA website that would be.
Okay.
The Portland FSDO, which is the Flight Standards District Office in Portland, is the one that kind of controls that. So you could go to the FSDO website and...
So jurisdictionally, that's probably the better
Yes.
place to,
Yeah,
to make comments known for this issue.
Right.
Okay.
And we are working with them, trying to minimize impact for everybody. So.
Okay. Can I, sorry, ma'am, if you want to make a comment, I'm happy to have you make a comment, but I'd like you to be at the podium.
It's not really a comment, it's just questions.
Well, I'm going to give Jim license to answer, and then, you know, I just want to have you on the record if you're going to be making comments. If you have a question, Jim, go ahead. You go ahead, ask Jim.
Yeah.
Why did they choose Brunswick?
One of the gentlemen is based at Brunswick, and they're part of a bigger club, the New England Aerobatics Association, and so they go to different airports throughout New England and New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, where they've been able to set up an aerobatic box and do their practices. As far as that club goes, which was the multi-day one that they did earlier in the year. The others are simply the based aircraft at the field that use it.
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Other comments? You've been very patient, sir. Go ahead.
I'm probably going to be a little bit stronger in my language. I think I called the airport.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Pardon?
Name? Could you give us your
My
name?
name is Joe Soroka, and I live in Brunswick, Maine.
Okay.
I called the airport, and I spoke to that gentleman you mentioned earlier. I could tell by his age, I think he probably grew up with computer games. And he didn't think it was possible for a plane to crash.
You mean an acrobatics?
Which that was very shocking to me, because then I wondered, what am I dealing with here? So we have a possibility of engine failure, cable failure, airframe failure. We have an airport that's essentially in the middle of a town. We can't predict where he might crash. There's a glide ratio, assuming that his wings are not damaged, or the rudder isn't damaged. The whole thing is very unpredictable. I see this aeronautical stunt flying the equivalent of approving of giving loaded guns to 5-year-olds. And we just gamble, is something going to go wrong or not? I think it's pretty silly, pretty childish, pretty reckless, actually. And we're dealing with a problem of foam and so on and so forth, and somebody's approving. Apparently the FAA says they can do this, and I don't care about the FAA. What do they know? They're profit-driven as well. I would think somebody would have the common sense to realize that that plane crashes, it might not be over the airport property. It doesn't matter whether it is or not. We're really betting against an accident for entertainment purposes. If a pilot needs to do aeronautical acrobatic stunt flying, I would wonder if he should even have a pilot's license. I think it's very childish, very reckless, and some people find it entertaining. Just like with the when the Navy Blue Angels come in, and they think it's entertainment to have incredible noise and vibration levels, more pollution in the air, and they make money off of what is actually a very reckless endeavor. Reckless, and I don't know how you could argue that. I really don't. You can't. If you're only sniffing for dollars, if you look at America today, across America today, we're in bad shape because we have a society that sniffs dollars without applying much common sense or logic to their activities. They only see bottom lines. And I think we have to broaden our vision and get beyond this place where we're stuck that actually requires wars.
Joe, you're over 3, just so you know.
Pardon?
You're over the 3-minute comment period. I want to be respectful, but I think the issues that you raise probably are best brought up in front of the FAA, with that FAA website, and trying to communicate directly to them since they regulate this activity.
I didn't hear a word you said because I couldn't get my hearing aid tuned to your volume, but that's all right.
I can talk to you after, Joe.
Well, my last statement would be, I would close the entire airport, and that ruins your bottom line, that ruins your jobs, and that makes everybody unhappy because they're so stuck in this traditional mold that's called social decay.
Thank you for your comment, Joe. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment, sir?
Hi, Courtney Neff for Brunswick. A general comment about the airport is, in terms of noise, it seems like some effort could be made to have the planes take off without going directly over town. There's a lot of different places they can take off without affecting nearly as many people. With regard to the stunt pilots, I appreciate that you've moved them a little bit, and I feel very sorry for anybody who lives really close to the airport. But everybody should be aware, we live about 6 blocks north of here, and it sounds like they're in our backyard. The noise is unbelievable. What a great way to destroy a beautiful day for the whole town. I mean, to think that a few people occupying their hobby can destroy the peace and quiet of 20,000 people in a town is incomprehensible. And I hope that those of us who are interested in this room and throughout the town can get together and approach the FAA in an organized fashion, because this is ludicrous. These guys usually must find an airport in a town where the airport's way in the periphery and they're flying over farmland. This airport, as we all know, is in the middle of a town of 20,000 people. This is ludicrous, gentlemen and ladies. And something has to be done, and if we have to do it through FAA, I hope we'll get organized and do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Hello, Sandy Updegraff from Brunswick. I'm also chair of the Brunswick Town Council. A couple of quick things follow up on the airport. I think Courtney's suggestion is interesting, and we may want to look at that website and see how we can approach the FAA. My main question for tonight is, I'm concerned that we still don't have the root cause analysis. I don't think any of you are responsible for the lag. I do think that Poole needs to really focus on this. And my question is, if you have an answer, why is it taking them so long? Is it staffing? Is it they just don't get it? Is it money? They don't have enough of that. And my thought is, do you, as a group, as a board, and as the staff, think that pressure from the town of Brunswick would be of some help? I know you may not have the answers to this, but I think it's gone on really long enough. Finally, good job on the win with American Airlines. That's great. I'm really glad to hear it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. I would say that the town of Brunswick should feel free to reach out to them and put additional pressure to get them.
We can coordinate with Director Stevenson, but I don't want to work at cross purposes.
No. I think we're all anticipating that this is overdue, and we all would like to have this completed.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks who would like to make public comments this evening? You, sir? We can be patient.
My name is Charlie Wallace. I'm a long-term resident of the town of Brunswick, beginning in about 1954-55. At the last RAB meeting, I presented a fairly extensive recommendation to Navy to improve upon Navy's application of environmental stewardship by paying attention to more than just the static dynamic of the Superfund designation of the sites that are the cause of a lot of consternation. I've met briefly with Dan and think that there needs to be a clarification of how something like improvements to the Navy process can be induced without getting involved in the blame game that occurred historically whenever something accidental or otherwise goes sideways. And quite frankly, the Superfund site approach that has been used at by Navy on the airbase has been slack, as it's been going on since 1987, and to date, I'm unaware that anybody at Navy recognizes the complexity of the underlying ledge or rock, or call it what you want, but the solid rock that's underlying all of this stuff that's leaking into it through what one geologist got up and said is a schist that splits the base and drives some water toward the Kennebec and some toward the Hopsel Cove. But Navy doesn't seem interested in thinking about something a little bit more dynamic, even though EPA has gotten a little more dynamic in how they're dealing with hazardous substances. But it's been late in coming. So I'm just continuing with my foot on the gas pedal a little bit and see if there's something that MRRA can't do to, under the auspices of the environmental stewardship, which is in the organized element of your charter, to put a little pressure on the Navy to open up a little bit and start doing things like anybody else in the private sector would have to do, given a similar circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Anyone else have a public comment this evening? Well, we are still ahead of schedule, and so where we're not having an executive session, I think I need a motion to adjourn for the evening. Sorry. Say it one more time. Oh, good point. I didn't mean to intentionally ignore online folks, and we've got 2 hands up. So, let's see. I don't know who put their hand up first, whether it was Julia or Jen, so I could randomly pick one. How about I pick Jen to go first with a public comment?
Thank you very much. My name's Jen Hicks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm the District 5 council member for Brunswick, and I wanted to, I'm glad a lot of things have been brought up that I wanted to ask about, but we have talked about the airport expansion in public comment, but I would like the public to know more about the airport master plan update, where it stands at this point. The last the last major event around that was a public meeting in April, I believe, and I would like to know more about what the next steps are for that process.
Thank you, Jen. We have.
And can I throw one more thing in, and then you can answer the question? Thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you've suggested that we reach out to the FAA. I would like to ask that we team up with the town of Brunswick and the airport, work together to reach out to the FAA. I would imagine that the airport, I'm hoping MRRA and the airport are as concerned about the residents' concerns, have the same concerns as residents. And it sounds like, from what it sounds like, the airport has no control whether this group is allowed to fly, or can, it doesn't sound like the airport can deny this club from having their stunt weekends happening. So I guess there is no ability to stop that activity. other than to ask the FAA to reconsider allowing it. And if that's the case, and knowing the extent of the concerns of residents, it's actually the number one thing I hear from constituents at this point is the stunt planes and the noise and the disruption. And I'd like to recommend that the town and MRRA and the airport work together to find a way to probably reduce, or if we can eliminate. It doesn't seem like a very appropriate activity for our community. It's very disruptive. It's not building good relationships right now. We're working really hard for the town and MRRA to really build together. We've made some good strides, but this is going to be, I think, a wedge. And so I'd like for that to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Jen. Jim, before you respond, maybe just because we're getting down towards the wire, can we let the one last comment, Julia, online make her comment? So, Julia, you're free to make your comment.
Oh, yeah. Hi, thank you.
Sure.
My name's Julia Levine. I'm a Brunswick resident, and most of my comments have already been stated. Certainly concerned about the noise, the safety with all those apartments. Some of them are just a block or two from the runway. I'm worried about home values if this carries on consistently. But the final thing that no one's mentioned yet is a lot of these flights have been occurring for a lot longer than they say they are. It's not 30 minutes here and there. It's not 3 or 4 hours. There was one day where we clocked many hours more than was stated. Is there some way we can at least keep these folks to stick to their stated timetable so that we know when they're stopping for sure and can go out for the day somewhere else? In the meantime, I certainly think as many people as possible, town council and whomever, should group together to reach out to the FAA. I actually sent them an email last year. That's the general website, the national website, and there is a route to go that way too. But I think if everyone who was concerned grouped together, we would get a much better response from the FAA. So I agree with that comment too earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Jim, can you respond to either Jen or Julia's concern?
Yeah, the only one that I can really respond to is Jen's first question, which is about where we're at with the airport master plan update.
Okay.
So there's a total of 3 public meetings for the master plan update. We've had, 4 meetings.
You can't come out and say, yeah.
Julia, you're going to have to mute. Okay, Jim, go ahead.
That those meetings, we've had 2. There's 2 more. We don't have the exact dates yet. How those work is, so the first 2 chapters were completed. We had a meeting. The next chapter, which was the forecasting, was completed, and we had another meeting in regards to that. So there's 4 more chapters that have to be done through the master plan update. And as those get completed, there will be a public meeting in regards to those chapters that are there. So we don't know the exact dates of the last 2 meetings, but as soon as we know, we'll of course publish those and on our website in the town for that. Only a partial answer to the second part of that about the aerobatic aircraft again. So we really can't control how much they fly when they have the box, but we only do the box from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. when they're doing it. So they won't be before or after that. And that's pretty much the gist of that.
Okay, Jim. Yep. Thank you. Now I really don't see any other comments online or otherwise. Unless I'm missing somebody, I will give you one last shot, but I think we've heard from everybody. So that being said, we are still early. I would like to have a motion to adjourn, and I need somebody to second that.
So moved.
Second.
John moved and Rita seconded it. So that being said, let's do a vote. Rita?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
I say aye. Jay?
Aye.
Charlotte?
Aye.
And John?
Aye.
And that we are therefore officially adjourned for the evening. I appreciate everybody coming and expressing your opinions and comments. Thank you.